Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the Digital to Dice podcast. I am Dave.
I'm Ron.
And Ron, we get episode 217 today.
You know, no one caught my error from last week. Not even I. Until I looked it up.
Another error? Another zip code
error? Another error. This is the Simpsons episode, Springfield, Illinois, 217. And I always kind of guess what episode number or when I looked them up. And when I realized that last week was 216, or the last one instead 217, no one from Cleveland, Ohio bothered to pay attention to the fact that I skipped Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah, so Dave Little doesn't listen to the show anymore, I guess, right?
Apparently not.
Apparently not,
Run his group
You know what we should do at this point now? What we should do is we should just start giving out fake cities now. So on 218, let's not give the real city anymore. Let's go, welcome Kokomo, Indiana, what I mean, or whatever it is.
Wouldn't you laugh if it was Indianapolis? I haven't looked, so I
haven't
don't
looked
know,
either. I just kind of shot that one out. So anyway, hey, so ways to get a hold of us here at the Digital to Dice podcast. The website is Digital to Dice, Digital T-O Dice. Everything is Digital T-O Dice, by the way, not the number 2, it's T-O. DigitalToDice.com is the website, and that's where you can find all our contact info. What we post when we put a new show up. We post all the guests that have been on the show and links to those particular shows, ways to listen to us, and the whole bit. It's all up on the website. Just kind of a simple website we have up there, but it puts everything in one place. The text line, 978-751-DICE. If you want to send us a text we may not read on the show. digitaltodice@yahoo.com is the email. Is the best way to get a hold of us. Also, if you're on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/digitaltodice. Come on in and join the conversation. And if you'd like to support the show on Patreon, we have some new Patreon supporters. Thank you so much for stepping up and supporting the show over on patreon.com/digitaltodice. And we have a $2 a month plan and a $5 a month plan if you'd like to kind of help us support the show and pay some of the bills over here to keep it going. I want to thank everybody that has been doing that consistently, and the new people that signed up as well. Now, here in episode 217, we were talking about this on my ride home from work the other day, and we're going to turn this into a show, and this is going to be called What Do You Want Out of Your Game? And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the different things that we want out of our game and maybe why we play certain games. And, of course, at the end, we're going to ask for your thoughts on this as well. Before we get to that, though, we'll probably skip what we're playing this week just because we're going to probably
it goes into it, too.
It's pretty much goes into the topic, yeah. But we did want to say we do have a couple of announcements here. If we haven't mentioned it already, Shootout Hockey just released 9091. And so, obviously, Shootout's one of my favorite games. 9091 is one of my favorite seasons, so I saw that, and I was all over that. So I have that printed over here, just waiting to cut and play. So, yeah, so if you're a fan of Shootout Hockey, 9091 season is now available.
You think if you sent a copy of the Penguins to Lemieux that he'd sign it?
I see people doing that.
That's why I brought it up. Someone bought, a 95 or a 96 Strat baseball set, and they're sending them to the players and seeing if they'll autograph their own Strat card, which I think is cool.
Yeah.
Don't ask Barry Bonds to do that. But,
yeah, I know, right?
But that's cool. Anyway, so you wonder if you was just hooked up a copy of that for Lemieux, whether he'd sign the card.
Oh, maybe. I read you leech on one of my California Seals shootout cards.
Nice.
Yeah, it was kind of neat, but I don't know. I could print out another copy and send it to him. You never know. I know people are doing that nowadays, but
yeah, I just think that's cool.
Yeah, for the 49 sports games for their on the turf football and quick text football, they just released 1955 season. So now they have at least one season from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s.
I'm curious why he picked 55. Did he say?
He did post some highlights on that season. That's before me. I don't know much about 50s.
That's just before Unitas, and it's just before the Giants were in the late 50s and what Baltimore did. It's after Cleveland's championships.
Was that Brady's first year?
Mike Brady's first year.
Mike Brady, like the Brady Bunch?
Yeah, Mike Brady. He did so good as the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers
Right.
that he was injured by 56 and learned how to become an architect. The Pittsburgh's true story has nothing to do with the Brady Bunch. The Pittsburgh Steelers had at one point in their training camp and released Johnny Unitas and Lenny Dawson.
Really?
Yeah.
You know what?
Now,
you know who else?
Dawson got lucky because of the AFL. It became the Hall of Fame quarterback that he was. But yeah, they had both Dawson and Unitas.
Do you know who the Steelers also had in training camp? I'm going by memory here. Al Bundy.
Oh, really?
The guy who played Al Bundy. I'm pretty sure it was him. And he did
Ed O'Neill?
Ed O'Neill. He did an interview one time on TV, and he said that he was in training. He was kind of a walk-on for this. I think it was the Steelers, and his dad dropped him off to camp, and he went in, and he goes, "I'll never make it, Dad." His dad forced him back, and he spent a couple weeks there and ended up getting cut. He never made any of the teams, but he did try out, and I think it was the Pittsburgh Steelers that he tried out for. So Ed O'Neill. I'll have to double-check that. I could be wrong on the team and even on the actor, but I'm pretty sure it was Ed O'Neill tried out for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
That makes, to have a football background for the Al Bundy character would make sense then.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Yeah. Anyway,
by the way, good luck to Russell Wilson, who's the newest member of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, and Mac Jones down in Jaguar territory, huh?
That's right. He gets to hold Jacob Lawrence's virtual clipboard.
Well, we'll see how that goes. I mean, quarterbacks are getting injured all over the place.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you need a good backup nowadays because they're going to probably start, at some point. Let's see. So, the last shout-out we want to do is Ron mentioned that 1986 season was released by Replay Baseball.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So, it's I like seeing that. I like when you see a new season come out. And
that's a fun season. Despite what happened that October, or because of what happened in that October, if you are a one of those fans,
one of them,
good for you. I'm not bitter or anything. It's only been 38 years. I'm still not bitter or anything.
No, we're
not at all. But some good teams. That Mets team is incredible, and the Astros are loaded. So they'll be glad that Pete finally released that season. I think they now have a run from 58 to 86. Did that finally?
They've been chipping away at their seasons. It's been kind of nice, yeah. So anyway, alrighty. So let's see. We got the intros out of the way. We have some of our announcements out of the way. So let's get right into the topic at hand, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what kind of spawned this topic of what do you want out of your game was the fact that I started playing Grant Fine's game, Quick Dex Football. It's the quicker version of his On the Turf football game, 49 Sports Games. And so he had sent me a copy about a month ago. He's like, "Hey, Dave, would you like to check out my game? I'll send one to you." So I said, "Sure." I said, "But I won't be able to look at it probably for a month because I'm busy." So he sent it to me. It was sitting over here. I finally did a virtual unboxing of the game. And then I sat down with him. And actually, we talked on the computer one night, and we went over kind of how to play it. And we went over a little bit about his hockey game and the whole bit. So we'll get him on the show, and we'll have him playing his games here. And so we went over how he played the game, and I was like, "Wow, this On the Turf game it's pretty deep." He said, "Well, try the Quick Dex version." So I said, "Okay." So I played the Quick Dex version of this game, and it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. The only thing is, as we've talked about many times on the show here, it's a play-by-play football game. And play-by-play football games are 90 minutes minimum. Really, they are. You're not going to get anything shorter than that unless you really are flying through the game. I mean, I'm not saying you can't play some of these games in an hour, let's say, but if you want to sit there and enjoy it and take in all the stats and the whole bit, you're looking at 90 minutes. And some of these games even go up to 3 hours. They really, really do, these football games. They're really in-depth. So I started playing this one here, and I just took my time with it, and I played a couple of games already. I played, so I got the 1976 season. He sent me 1976 because we always talk about if you're going to play a new game, get a season or a team or a player
that you really care about. Yeah.
that you care about. Because if the teams that he sent with the game, they're fine, but the problem. I don't want to say the problem, but the issue I have sometimes when you buy a game and they send you stock teams, like even Apple will send you the best teams. You're playing best against best. Sometimes you really can't judge a game when you're playing best against best. You want to play a medium team against a good team. I mean, even when I played Hockey Blast, when I first started playing Hockey Blast, I would play the best teams, and it's like everybody had stars, everybody had qualities, So I said, okay, well, let me play a bad team. Let me put the Kansas City Scouts on the table. They have no stars, they have no quality, and then you could really see how the game plays at that point, because it's not like sometimes when it's best against best, it's just kind of a stalemate. I feel, So I wanted to play normal teams, so to speak. And so he sent me 76, and I played New England and Buffalo. And New England was really good, and Buffalo, even with O.J. Simpson, was really bad that year. And I played that, and I learned the game, and I stumbled through it, and I made a lot of mistakes, and I had a ton of questions on procedures in the game and how things worked out. And by the end of that game, holy cow! It's just even playing that game, it was fun. It was a challenge, but it was a fun challenge. In fact, every time something come up on the card or whatever, and I'd have to go in the rule book, I was learning the game, and everything made sense. And sometimes it took me a few times to kind of make this routine, so to speak. But it was so fun. Like, I never got to a point where I wanted to give up. I never got to a point where I said, this is too hard, this is too confusing, this is too much. I never got to that point. And so I plowed through it. I got through my first game, and then I played my second game the other day. I was Gandalf. Said, hey, let's go. I said, who am I going to play Tampa Bay Buccaneers against? And he suggested Minnesota. So they didn't play that year, but that sounds good. It's a good matchup, Buccaneers and Minnesota. So I played that one the other night, and it took me a while to play because I chipped away over the weekend. But when I got done that game, it was, wow. I played the full thing. I went into the Tom Milne helper, and I put in all the stats. And so now I know exactly how many yards Chuck Foreman ran for, and how many fumbles the Buccaneers had, and the whole bit, and how many yards. And something, it come out pretty close to what I would have expected from a Minnesota-Tampa Bay game in 76. And the Patriots-Buffalo game, I think it was 26-0 New England, and that's kind of what I expected out of that game too, because Buffalo was 2-12 or something that year. And so these games took me all weekend to play. And again, learning the game, it's a long game going in, and any time that you have a long game, it's going to be even longer when you're first learning it. And I don't know about some of you guys, but I'm always second guessing myself when I'm playing a new game, because I'm always like, okay, I know that this is the procedure, but I'm going to double check. So like every single play, I'm going into the rule book, and until I was comfortable with certain things. So it took me forever to play, but when I got done, I was very satisfied with the results. I envisioned every play. I felt like I was at the game. It told a story. Ron, you always say, telling stories is a big part of what we do here, and it was fantastic. And I can't believe like how long it took me to play this again, because I was looking up the rules and double checking my figures, and I was just taking my time. For some reason, I was just not in any hurry to finish this game, and I just played both games out, and I had a blast. And it's a lot longer than I usually like to play, but so I looked up at the clock, and it was midnight. I was like, boy, that flew by. I was so into this game, and I was having so much fun that the time didn't matter, if that makes sense. It just didn't matter.
This kind of
it was time well spent, if that makes any sense. Now obviously if it had taken me 7 days to play the game, then okay, that's a little much, but so it just got me thinking, because then the first thing that everybody was asking me about this game, how long did it take to play? And I know that the real question behind that is, how long is it going to take me to play this game? Once I get up and running. So it's kind of a weird question to ask right now, because I'm just learning the game. It's almost like if someone said, hey, how long did it take you to drive from Orlando to Jacksonville? And I said, well, it took me like 2.5 days. holy cow, 2.5 days. Well, I stopped off at my uncle's house, then we stopped off at this famous restaurant, then we spent the night somewhere, and then we stopped to see the largest ball of string in the United States, and then we kind of went around over here to visit this, and then we finally, so that's why it took 2.5 days to drive from Orlando to Jacksonville, when realistically you could probably do it in 4, 5, 6 hours or something like that. So it's kind it's kind of a weird question to ask when you're first learning a game and you're taking your time and you're kind of going over everything. So I haven't really answered too many people on the question, how long did it take? Because if I told them, they'd be like, oh, forget it, I ain't playing that game. Well, again, if I told you it took 2.5 days to go from Orlando to Jacksonville, you wouldn't want to take the drive either. But once I explained the route I took to do that and why it took 2.5 days, and then the next time I did it, if I just drove straight there, what would it be? When I think back to my first days with Apple hockey, those games were taking me, 2.5 hours to play a game of Apple hockey while I was getting up to speed and, checking the rule book again and double checking my work. 'Cause that's one thing I just do. I'm just neurotic about that, especially when I'm streaming. For some reason, when I'm streaming, all the stuff that just comes to me normally like that, I fight with when I stream. And it's like, okay, I don't want to screw this up while I'm streaming and have someone point this out, so I'm going to go and get it right. But now the game of Apple, I can probably play it in just over an hour. I mean, again, depending how many penalties and goals in the whole bit, but a game of Apple hockey, I fly through now. I'm just that quick at it. And so I don't doubt that at some point, once I start memorizing all the different things that happen in this game and how to play them and what takes precedence over other things, and because there's some things that kind of conflict in the game. Not the game's fault. It just happens on a football play.
But that's still always going to be an hour and a half, 2 hour game.
Yeah, this is going to, well, the quick decks, Grant was saying it should be closer to an hour. Okay, now, again, if I would have kind of put my mind to it and play it instead of dilly-dallying around, but what I was doing, like with the Minnesota-Tampa Bay game, I'm picturing Tampa in their white jerseys, on a snowy field in Minnesota. Minnesota's got their purple people eaters on, and Spurrier goes back to pass, and it says pressure on the quarterback. So now, instead of just rolling dice and getting it over with, I'm like, here comes the Vikings. They're putting pressure on that young Tampa Bay offensive line, and I'm picturing the play in my head. And I roll the dice. Yep. They got pressure. Spurrier's now got to scramble out to the right. What's going to happen? Is he going to be sacked? Is he going to, just take off? What's going to happen on the play? And then the play plays out, and I envision the whole thing into my head. And then I recap the play in my head like I'm watching on TV. It's like, well, that was a great rush from the right side, and and Spurrier ran out to the left, and they got him by the foot, and it's a loss of 4 yards on the play, and it's 2nd and 14. All that for a 4-yard loss. Okay? But all that for a 4-yard loss. That was awesome. It was completely awesome. That whole, how this game's set up, and it tells the story. You can see the pressure coming. The quarterback's got to run, and then you see what happens when he runs. Does he, like I say, is he sacked? Does he pass? Does he, what happens? And it all plays out, and it's the same with the pass. It's just, okay, he's going back to pass. Is there pressure or not? Okay, he's going to air this out. Oh, look at this. The defense has a chance to knock it away. I roll. So on one play, on the Buccaneers' only score of the game against the Vikings, it was on the 48-yard line in Minnesota. I rolled automatically for a long pass. Spurrier went back. He avoided the pressure by 1. He threw it up in the air, and it was a -10 modifier. So I went from a 19% chance to a 9% chance of making the catch. 9%. There's not many cards you flip that have a 9% chance of a good catch, okay? I flipped it over, and it was one of those cards that it was either knocked away or a catch. So I rolled to see if the Vikings knocked it away. I missed it by 1. So I missed the pressure by 1, the deflection by 1, and Morris Owens caught it. And when I rolled the dice in the whole bit, or flipped the card, it was like a 50-something yard gain, and he got a touchdown. A 48-yard bomb by the Buccaneers. Everything had to go right for that play to happen. And I must have rechecked my work 5 times to make sure I did it right. And when I was done, I was like, oh my gosh, that was so cool. That was so awesome. That, he just threw this up as a prayer, and he got it. And again, I'm visualizing the game, and it's just, I was so captivated by what was going on in the game, and I'm looking at the people that I'm reading, Spurrier and Owens, Chuck Foreman, Fran Tarkenton. I'm just kind of like, as I'm flipping cards and rolling dice, the game, I can picture like the highlight reel going off in my head is what I did. I was so into this game. It took me forever to play, but like every minute of it was just so good. So when I asked that question, what do you want out of your game? If someone told me, man, you'd be all weekend playing this football game, well, no, I would never do that. But when I did it and I saw what I get out of this game and how much joy and fun and nostalgia come out of this game, when I was finished, I did not regret one bit spending all that time learning this game and playing this game. And there's other times, as you know, that, you want to play something and you just want to get a quick score. And so there's no way I would play a game like this if I just kind of wanted to bang out some quick scores. But for this particular one, I wanted to see a full play game, how the winless Buccaneers did against the Vikings, who I think went to the Super Bowl that year.
Yes.
So let's see how it goes. Let's play this out play by play. Not a quick play game, not a drive by drive game, a full scale game. And I also wanted to check to see how many plays each team got, how many drives each team got. Because, I like to play the drive-by-drive games, or some other games, they limit you how many plays you get. So it was kind of fun to just play this out. I kind of did my own timekeeping, 15 seconds if it went out of bounds and 30 seconds for a run. And I just kind of averaged everything. I didn't go too crazy with that just yet. So I wanted to see how close I came with drives and plays and the whole bit. And I think I was in the ballpark with this, as far as, like the drive-by-drive game, saying, well, you only get, each team gets, 10 drives or 5 drives a half. Or
about that.
Something like that, yeah. And so it was pretty darn close. It really was. What's fun about the play-by-play games is that sometimes you get more drives, sometimes you get less drives, depending on how long the drives were. I was actually concerned in the beginning of the game because, especially with the Patriots and Bills game, because each team was like driving the field. And even though the Bills didn't score, they would get 40, 50-yard drives before they had to punt or miss a field goal or whatever. And I was like, oh, man, this game is just so easy. I mean, the defense can't stop the offense. And then at some point, it was 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. And it's like, okay, it kind of balanced out a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
So after playing this game, I have a newfound love for the long play game. I really do. Whether it's hockey or football, those are the two really longer play games, I would think. And it got me thinking, what do you want out of your game? And what I wanted out of this game was I wanted a play-by-play type of game. I wanted to see how many yards Chuck Foreman would get. I want to see how bad the Buccaneers were. I think they fumbled like 3 times in this game. It was pretty bad. And early on it was 7-7 after that bomb that they got. It was 7-7. And I was sitting there like, wow, the fans here at the Met Stadium are booing the Vikings because they can't even beat this expansion team, and that's just kind of how I felt, like the crowd was riding the Vikings, and eventually the Vikings went on to win 31-7, so it really wasn't a contest, but it was 7-7 for a while, and and the Buccaneers were moving the ball, and the Vikings were having problems, and Buccaneers even tried a field goal that they missed. It just and then eventually the better team took over and won the game, which is what I was hoping was going to happen, and it did. So I'm thinking I got out of that game exactly what I was looking for, which is different when I want to play a game like shootout hockey or a Downey quick play game or something like that. There's different reasons we play these games. And it all comes down to what do you want out of your game? Because some people, like you say, we'll look at I'll never play a game that takes me that long. Well, what do you want out of your game?
Well, the original pitch for both Strat and APA baseball back in the 60s and 70s was you are the manager. We'll give you the tools to be plausibly correct with 660 major leaguers or whatever. But you make the decisions on who you want in the lineup and who you're going to pitch and how long do you pitch them for and all that. And that was the original idea was, okay, we'll put you in control of this and see how well that you do and give it away where the statistics matter. And at some point, probably with the rise of computers and the people having computers, it came to, what is the most accurate of this and the most accurate of that. And I think it got away from the experience that you just described of how do I spend this amount of time getting the experience that I want, whether it's reliving those players. Those two teams didn't play in 76 because Tampa was an AFC team.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't play till the first time until 77 when they went through. And so there is that episode, you're limited in any of these games, whether they're computer or on the table, by what you want in your imagination. There were kids in the 50s and 60s and early 70s who would have played, a regular, okay, the Yankees didn't make the World Series. Let's say Baltimore did. Well, let's do this Yankee-Dodger World Series as opposed to that. And again, you're creating the illusion in your head of playing that game. Now, baseball tends to play quicker and all that. And as you got into other sports and I can go back and relive said matchup, or, oh no, I think Team A got hosed. Let's do this. And that's kind of how the hobby really just kind of took off, I think, because it gave you, the replayer or the player, control of what it is that you wanted. And, when statistics became, popular to come out, and accuracy and this, that, and the other thing, and more playable and that. But again, it kind of, what you did in that story was kind of, that's the basics of how we all got into this. Was I want to take Team A, play them against Team B, and see if it can match what's in my head of what that should be. And it comes into storytelling. And as you're going through and the slow motion NFL films of Spurrier in the snow getting out of trouble and, completing the pass that tie the ball game before the Vikings just kind of clamped down, took over. I mean, yeah, you got it right there. That's exactly why we do that. Now,
the last couple of months or so, when I've been working ridiculous hours, and there was no way I was going to sit down and play a game that was going to take this long, that's something that never crossed my mind is because I got second season in solitaire pro football, which I really, really like, but I know I'm looking at an hour and a half, 2 hour game, even with them. And so if I want to sit and play a football game, I really have to look at the drive-by-drive games. That's what I have to look at.
Yeah, and then then comes the pressure of being adulthood and how much time you have for this and how much time you have for that, and how creative do you want to be? And it's not just for football games. I mean, baseball is the king, but there's 97 different baseball games or whatever, and it comes down to what do you like for a sport, and how much do you want to involve into that?
And it comes down how much, if you play the full play game, whether, no matter what game it is, you're going to see every single thing that happened in the game.
Right.
When you play a game of Apple Hockey or Hockey Bones or Strat or whatever, you're going to see every penalty, every shot, every goal. You're not just going to get the highlights. You're going to get everything. And when you play the longer play football games, and you do play-by-play, you see every single thing that happens. You see the 1 yard runs, and you see the 48-yard touchdown passes. You see everything in the game. Whereas, again, drive-by-drive games and the final score games, you're going to get, results quicker. So you're only there for, 15, 20 minutes, but you're not going to see everything that happens in the game. You're going to get a condensed version of it. And that's where, for me, sometimes I get the hockey itch, and it's like, well, do I want to put out Apple Hockey or Hockey Bones on my tabletop, because that's just going to be a long game. I really don't have the attention span or the energy or the time for that, so I'm going to pull out, shootout hockey or stone cold hockey, which is going to take me 15, 20 minutes, and I'll get my hockey fix, even though I won't get the full experience. I prefer to play the longer games because I get the full experience. I get to feel like I watched the whole game from start to finish. I didn't miss any of it. And the other games are great because they're quicker, but you do miss a chunk of it. It's kind of like watching the 10-minute movie recap. Sometimes you watch those and like, oh, that was a really cool movie, but boy, I'd really like to see the whole thing to see how the characters, were built up and their backstories and what happened, because you miss a lot when you just watch those 10-minute recaps. And that's the same thing when you're playing the quicker games. That being said, it is fantastic that we have all these games to choose from the single dice roll games to the full 2.5, 3 hour, sports games on the tabletop. It's great that we have those choices, and there's no wrong answers here. So my question today was, what do you want out of your game? And let me ask you that question, Ron. So you're going to go and play some baseball today. Okay, just say, okay, I get the urge. Okay, so 86 just come out for replay. Oh man, I want to play Game 1 of that World Series with the Sox and the Mets. So now you got to decide what game you want to play. So I'm going to ask you. So today, what do you want out of your game, and is that going to determine what game you play?
Well, the chances of me replaying the 86 World Series are probably less than zero.
But if you got the itch to play like Game 1, I want to replay Game 1. You see the YouTube video, someone brings it up. Okay, I'm going to play just Game 1, So now you're thinking, what do I want out of this game replay? Do I want to play Action PC and get the whole thing? Do I want to go, replay baseball? Do I want to go roster card? And they all do different things, and some play a little quicker than others. Do you want to do the fast inning baseball from Al Wilson just to kind of
see? I think the long convoluted answer is I would just play it out. Really wouldn't matter what engine I'm happier with not happier with, but I'm most comfortable with at the moment, because you can play a baseball game in 30, 45 minutes tops if you're not streaming it or whatever. So in that aspect, there really isn't a heck of a lot of difference between an Action PC and a roster card or an OTP or a Strat. You're going to get whatever it is. You're going to get pretty much a similar experience. Now, if I was to do maybe an older series or a newer series where I really don't know anybody or that much, then yeah, that's where a fast inning baseball would come in. Two teams that I'm not really all that familiar with, or did the 2001 replay last year. It would have been interesting to have done the first round of those playoffs in the quicker play games, because you could rattle those off in an hour, do a best of 5, and you get the full taste of it. You get the immersion of it. It does, what Al Wilson's done with that, and what Gary Brown's done with Stone Cold, and what John's done with Shootout is, it gives you the full story without taking the full time, I think is where you're trying to get me to go with that.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was trying to get at. So you're going to play out something here, and you're like, well, I'm going to play the earlier rounds in the quick play.
Right. That would have been how I, could have done that. And because you get the full series in the same length of time that would take you to the one game, you get out of what you want. I mean, in Al Wilson's game, you get the crucial at-bats, who won, who lost. Does it tell you who went 4 for 5 or who threw the 3-hit shutout? No, it really doesn't do that. But again, for that type of thing, if you're just looking to do some filler, let's say let's use hockey as an example, because there are 8 first-round series. Okay, you are not going, if you did a full, because today it's best of 7 in the first round. So let's say every series went the distance, okay? All 7 or all 8 series go to game 7. You are talking a 56 game first round replay.
Right. Yep.
And so, okay, so you do what the CBC or ESPN would do and say, okay, we're going to be featuring your favorite team. That's going to be the feature series. That's the one we're going to play out in full. So for you, it'd be the Bruins, and last year it'd been, Florida. And for me, I'm gone back to the film strip projector to watch my beloved Canadians or whatever. But, you're going to pick maybe, for me, I might pick the most intriguing Eastern Conference series. So it could have been the Bruins or whatever, or the most intriguing Western Conference series, Edmonton. McDavid's over 100 points again, by the way, but still about a month ago in the season. And then I would use, let's say, Stone Cold to play out the other 6 series. And so, yes, you get, maybe you sit and do one series per night and get the full series, and you get all the highlights. So you know when all the big goals were scored, you know when the big saves came up and who was hot and who was not and all that. And so you get more than just the final score. You were able to take in those games, but you're saving it for the full play stuff for, oh, yeah, this is a series that I wanted. And sometimes the series is a classic, and then sometimes it's over in 4 games and your team.
And even in the Action PC, you know, I see sometimes you play your full game out, then you just sim the other games. And, you know, Robert does the same thing with his inside pitch replay.
He does the fast score. He does it 3 days at a time, I believe.
Yeah, he does the fast score thing there. So, again, what do you want out of your game? In that situation there, you want to play some of the games that are important to you. In the other games, you either just want a final score because that's what you want out of that, or you want some details. You were saying the hockey. I'm going to play the Stone Cold hockey, and that way I know who scored and the whole bit, and I get a final score. So I got a little bit of details, and that's all I wanted out of that. I didn't want to play the full game because I'm sacrificing time.
You
would
never finish it.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that because Gary does such a good job with Stone Cold, is that you might have seen go back to when it was the 4 divisions and division semis and division finals. Let's say you had, what was it, the Smythe. That would have been what? Chicago, St. Louis, Toronto, Detroit?
No, that was the...
no, it's Norris, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Smythe was Edmonton.
All right, and so on paper in the 80s, you're not playing those full out unless you're a fan of one of those 4 teams, just because they were all right around 500. They weren't. You clearly want Edmonton. If you're going to pick out, one from the conferences, Edmonton is one you're playing. You want to play Gretzky out. You want to play that out. And the East, Montreal's the playoffs. We're playing, that one out. So that's the one the entirety. But let's say you got a Pittsburgh Washington series that you were kind of quick playing out there, and it goes 7, and you see some of those names like, oh, Mo Mantha had a hat trick. And so you might pick up a second round series that you didn't, or, it just kind of builds the interest in the game, I think is where you go with that. Now, I got to say, I'm going to be honest here. We talked about this last week. I picked up Stone Cold Hockey and played a couple of games, and I felt very unattached. Again, and I think it wasn't Gary's fault. It wasn't the game designer's fault. It wasn't how it was presented on the computer. It was the only reason, because I never talk negatively about the games that I play, and I'm not going to talk negative about this. I just wasn't in the mood. You talk about the opposite of playing the full play game. I guess I wasn't in the mood for that experience, whether I was in the mood to play hockey or in the mood for just, show me where the stuff in the buffet line is so I can grab it. It wasn't that the game was bad. It was just I didn't really feel it wasn't what I was.
I've had that myself. I've pulled out a game, whether it's on the table or the computer, and set up, started playing, and it just didn't work for me. I was just like, something. This is not working. I really just no. It's just not happening for me. It's kind of. And I put it away. And I've had that even with some of my favorite games. I pull it out and it's like, I'm not in the mood for this right now. I thought I was, but it's just not happening for me right now. So we know we've all been there. But, there was someone that was playing hockey playoffs, and they would quick sim. I don't know if it was computer or tabletop. They would quick sim until the deciding game, and then they would play it.
Right.
And that was a neat way of doing it, too. That way there, so you can kind of – so, again, if you what do you want out of your game? Well, what do I want today is I want some just results. I want to get results, and then when I come down to the deciding game, what do I want? I want to play it out so I can see if the team does get eliminated and the other team moves on, And I thought that was kind of neat, too. It's a little bit of, juggling your time there and juggling the details of the game. It's kind of what it with what that guy was doing, and I kind of like that idea. Sometimes you just want to kind of get through the early rounds and then get to the big guys. As we get to the later rounds of the playoffs. That's kind of neat too. But the other thing is when you talk about what do you want out of your game is the stat keeping. I could probably rip through that 49 quick text football game a lot quicker if I wasn't keeping any kind of stats.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was in that Buccaneers-Vikings game, I was writing down exactly where I was in the field, down in distance, what the play call was, who the play call was going to, and the results. And that took a lot of time to write all that down. And so, but at the end, I got, 4 sheets of paper with every single play in the game of, what was a run, what was a pass, who got the run, who got the pass, complete, incomplete, how many yards, there's a quarterback sacked, So all those things are there. So when it comes down to stat keeping, that'll add time to your game. So, again, when I asked, what do you want out of your game? Well, I wanted to get full stats. So I did. Now, there's other times that I'll rip through a game of, even like Apple Hockey and Hockey Bones, I'll just rip through the game and I won't even care who gets goals and shots on net. I'm just kind of going, I want to play a full game, but I want to rip through it really quick. And so I'm not even concerned about who gets the goals. And I've done that several times with shootout hockey, where I played shootout and it's like, don't care who scores. I get a scoring chance. Is it in or not? Yes. I'm not worried about who's going to get the goal. I'm just going to get the final score from this. And I can rip through a game of shootout really fast if I'm not rolling for assists and penalties and goals. If I'm goal scorers. If I'm just going to go through, if it's a power play, great. Okay. Don't care who gets the penalty. Don't care. Because I'm not keeping individual stats. But I want to play a game of shootout and I want to get the final score using shootout. And I can do it so much faster if I don't keep the stats. So keeping stats in my football game just tacked on a whole bunch of extra time to it. So again, if I didn't want to do that,
I think for that you'd have to keep them at least to some extent because you need to know where you are on the field and your situation.
Yeah, but I could just kind of I'm first and 10 on the 20, and then here's a handoff to Chuck Foreman, and just 4 yards. Okay, now I'm second and 6 on the 24. And I could just kind of go like that instead of writing down exactly, who's getting the ball and how they did. I could just kind of keep track of down and distance. That just do it that way. So again, it depends how deep you are with stats, and I'm talking mostly the football and the hockey. The baseball, that goes pretty quick. The baseball goes pretty quick. But still, there's some faster play baseball games, and there's some games that are quite deep as far as baseball goes. I mean,
again, the Al Wilson stuff is not, you're not going to get detailed stats, but you get all the key moments. I got to be honest with you. In pretty much any replay I've ever done, I really don't care about the stats. The computer keeps them.
Yeah.
And they tell stories, for that, and I think in the 6 years, this is the 6th year I've done the baseball replay, I can tell you that, Steve Rogers had the great year in 82 when the Expos won the World Series in my first replay. He was a 20-some-odd game winner, but I'd have to look up to see what he did. I remember him shutting down the Dodgers in his playoff game to get him to the World Series, but that's about all I remember from that. John Tudor had that great run in 85. Clearly the Cy Young winner. I couldn't tell you specifically what his numbers were. I know that in the playoffs he had 5 unbelievable starts. But again, I think that for those of us who do a project of that scope and size where that you're going to be, regardless of who you play in the regular season, you're doing a postseason. You remember the World Series games and that. I can tell you that Bobby Bonds with the big homer to beat Guidry in the 78 ALCS in New York and the decider. I couldn't tell you what Guidry did in that replay outside of it was good. And so, yeah, I know it's sacrilegious to some, but I honestly don't care. I'll look every once in a while. I guess I know that I've been doing this long enough to know that the stats are going to get me in the ballpark of what a plausibility, whether they're accurate or not. I'll tell you what, you were over the week been trying to figure out, because I don't play action PC baseball unless I stream it, because it's work. That's what I do for work. And again, nothing against the game at all. It plays really well. He's done a tremendous job with the version. But to me, that's not relaxing. And so I pulled out Roster Card, which I think is a completely underrated game. Mm-hmm. Now, Greg Sylvan is no longer with us. And so that game will not be developed anymore. The person that took over his stuff continues to release the seasons. I'm not sure. He's also... Fall Classic, which you can buy from ASG Games, was Greg's game. And that was also still being sold for that. So I took out ball stat, ball score, which is also was done by James Haber, who's no longer with us, and pulled out, just was looking to see if I still liked it and how much did I remember and all that. And so I pulled out 78 for roster card. And it works for me because everything's on the sheets, one sheet. And Andy Lewis, who, if you're listening, would you please get a hold of us at digital2dice@yahoo.com so we can set up a time to interview you, because I really want you on. So using that flipper and going through, and in the back of my mind, Skip from undisclosed location in New England is ringing in my head, because I pulled out, I went with 12 teams. I went 1 through 12. And so instead of just the 9 teams that were within 5 games of each other that year, I went with 12. So just in case you're wondering, the teams that were added to make it to 12 were Milwaukee, Baltimore, and San Francisco. So I think it's actually a split of 6 and 6. So there's a DH. If I'm doing by myself, I'm using DH. I don't want pitchers to hit. It takes work for me to go through and pull a pitcher and figure out who I should pinch it. And I'm playing for the sake of playing, because that's what, and so you get back to, why do we do this? Why do we play? It's the immersion of it all. What would have happened for this? I did a Yankees-Dodgers in New York 3-game series. Guidry goes the distance and loses. He goes 11. I had to look up to see who hit Davey Lopes hit the game-winning home run in the top of the 11th inning. Guidry threw a 2-hitter and lost. Those are the things that kind of stick with you. Like, I know someone hit a home run. Who was it? But then again, you talk about taking Tampa and Minnesota, and doesn't matter how long it took to play, you could, when you were describing that play, I could see the slowed down John Vicinda, NFL films, white creamsicle jerseys in the snow. I saw that whole thing as you were describing that. Well, here we are, Lopes taking, deep, but you can visualize that however you want. It doesn't need to be Yankee Stadium, Candlestick Park. It could be your back sand lot at your high school, and they can be softball tops, and it's however you want to do that. And yeah, you're keeping track of the stats to figure out what's going on, but
let me take a turn here. Let me take another turn here.
It's secondary for me.
So when it comes down to what you want out of your game, another thing could be a challenge. And I say that is... I've
done that several times, sure.
When we talk about learning games and we talk about basic games versus advanced and master games, and I think we did a whole show, or we're going to do a whole show on, basic. I forget if we did one or not. Because we've talked about everything over the last 5 years, but we start thinking about some people that want to play the master game. Like I just got I just ordered the Apple football game. I just got the basic because that's what I want to do right now. I don't know if I'll ever bump up to master or not, but I know some people like to play the master baseball game. It's more of a challenge. It gets a little bit deeper. Strat. I like Strat baseball basic. I've played the advanced. I haven't played the super advanced, at least not on my tabletop. And I have a love-hate relationship with it. Sometimes it works well, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes that's not...
You want to challenge the strat as carded, not as played, but as carded, and you only have those players at the end of the year you have for the entire season.
Well, that would be
good luck.
That would be another...
Again, that's fantastic, and the fun is in the challenge. You know that you're not going to get said player later. You have who you have, and you can decide whether you want injuries or that. I know exactly where you're going.
So you could go, like I said, you could go advanced or master when you play this game. Even Season Ticket has a basic mode, and then they have an advanced mode with all kinds of craziness going on. If you really want to get deep into the game. The Quick Text Football I'm playing has a full version, which gets into all kinds of, defensive charts and different plays and reads. And, that's all going to be a long game if I ever get to that one. But like you said, so do you want to play the as played, or do you want to play the as carded in Strat? That's a whole nother thing. So what do you want out of that? I want the challenge of how do I do with just the cards on the table? Do I want a challenge of the game? Do I want a harder game to play? Do I want something that's going to really challenge me when I sit down and play this game? Or do I, like myself, sometimes I like to kick back late at night and just play Strat Basic Baseball or APA Basic Baseball, because I feel those are two of the more simpler games that I can play and still have fun with it. And so at that point, I'm not looking for a challenge. I just want to play a game and have some fun with it. And then I guess the last thing I want to touch on here, what do you want out of your game, is, so what's the reason you're playing it, and what are you trying to get out of it? Well, are you playing a player, or are you playing a team to see how they do? Like last night, I wanted to see how Tampa Bay did against the Vikings, and that's what I got out of that game, and I did the full play. Sometimes, in the hockey, as you know, I've been playing the one-off goaltenders in Hockey Bones, and so it's been kind of fun. So what am I looking for on that one? I want to see how this goalie who played one game, how he does on my tabletop, and that's what I'm looking for. That's what I want out of that game, is the results for that one player. Don't really care about anybody else. How does this guy do in his one game on my tabletop?
I am not a movie person. People have recommended movies and TV shows and all this, and I'll smile and I'll nod, and I won't watch any of them because I frankly don't care. Now, why do I bring this up? Because I want to annoy as many of you as I can? Well, that's probably true, but that's not why I bring it up. Because when I'm looking for that sort of entertainment, when I want to be entertain me, tell me something I don't know, that's when you pull out the game. Strat Basketball, is one of those. Don't ask me why. That is up there in my top games I've ever played. I'm not really an NBA fan. Familiar with it, but outside of when the Celtics were on when I was a kid, that was about the crying because the Lakers won. Okay, that happened a lot. But as far as paint me a picture between my ears, that game for me is the perfect game for that, and you don't know what you're going to run into, because I think for me the ultimate drama of sports is not knowing what's coming. You absolutely do not know. Now, if you take the 76 Bucks and the 76 Vikings, you know what's coming. However, you don't know how it's going to come. And again, back to your visualization of Spurrier, of all people, avoiding the sack, avoiding the deflection, and finding the shocked wide open receiver in the end zone and his clean creamsicle uniform because they threw the ball 9 times. That's the draw. That is absolutely the draw for me right there. And so being able to direct to, okay, no, Mikhail has to shoot that outside shot. What's it going to be? There was one night, it really doesn't matter what season I was doing, I was playing the Celtics and the Washington Bullets. And because I start and stop, which is how I can do the 2-hour games, the football games, the basketball games. Hockey, I can pretty much go in one go. But the basketball game and the football game, my brain starts to melt after a half hour. I get bored, whatever. And so I'm talking to you. And the Celtics are down 18 to the Bullets. And you said, they're going to come back and win. And I went, well, they should. But I doubt it. And lo and behold, the Celtics came back and won, and that made the story of the game. Like, how do you go through and do that? And so, yes, I think for me, it is.
And if you had played a quicker play game, you wouldn't have seen that comeback.
That's right.
It would have been baked into it, but you wouldn't have seen it.
I don't really like. I don't want to say that. Let me rephrase that. If I can play a full game, I will do a full game. If I want to do something that's quicker, I have nothing against the fast play or those games. But most of the time when I'm doing that, I want the full experience. I know that I can do a basketball game in 2 or 3 sittings. It's not the end of the world if it doesn't happen. Sometimes you get so engrossed that you just keep going. And again, like, whoa, I just spent 2 hours doing this. It felt like 5 minutes. The wife is hungry because I was supposed to order dinner an hour ago. That sort of thing. But yeah, because It is all about telling the story to yourself. And I think it's one of the reasons why it's harder to do cards and dice in a streaming thing, because you're telling the story to yourself. I was doing game one of that, again, in strap basketball, Celtics-Lakers final at 85. And the Celtics blew a huge lead. And the Lakers stormed back. The Lakers were up 7 late and blew it. And at some point in that fourth quarter, I went, man, I should be streaming this. This would be fun. And the Celtics won in overtime. And I realized, as you say, it's your birthday. It's your birthday. It means the most to you than it is to anybody. I mean, I had so much fun doing that, but it was for an audience of one. But I think that's what overall drives us to that. And again, it can be that quicker play game when you're doing that, or it can be, I mean, the first time I did a Roberto Savini game was the 100-meter dash for the 84 Olympics. And it wasn't Carl Lewis who won, it was Sam Grady. But Grady's winning time matched what Lewis ran the final in 84 to the 100th of a second. And that was, oh, wow. You know, one of those, oh, I get it. Yeah. Oh, I absolutely get it. And so I think it doesn't really matter what form you get it in, and you shouldn't be felt guilty about having to play long play games. I mean, that's the whole play philosophy, is tell the story while you're playing the game. I think that's why Gary Brown stuff does so well. We've talked about Al Wilson stuff. You may not get every pitch, every check, every shot, whatever, but you're going to get enough of a sense of it to build that story between your ears.
And
so I guess that's where I go with that. And again, the games that I gravitate to the most, to me, tell the best stories. And because for me, it's about the story. I'm telling myself the story. Some of it translates better when you share it. You know, it's easy to go through and, you know, if you don't have to explain how so-and-so got the 3 yards or whatever, to do that on a stream, just because of my physical issues. You know, that's harder for me to do that than it is for you. So whatever I can share, that's great. But again, in the end, you know, when I'm retired from this stuff, it's going to be the stories that I told myself, because it's the greatest fiction writers in the world. Is how those games play in your head.
And the last thing I want to bring up here is, you know, when you're deciding, you know, what you want out of a game, it really comes down to, you know, the size of the project. You know, if you want to play a full season, you just want to play a one-off. You know, if you want to play a playoffs, like you said, if you want to play hockey playoffs today, you could be looking at 56 games. That's a lot of games. If you want to play,
that's just for the first round.
Yeah, you want to play out something full bore with app or a hockey bones or strat. That's going to be a big project. So you're going to want to incorporate some other things. So the game you select, what you want out of it, if you want full stats, full play, and the whole bit, that will probably affect the size of the project that you want to select. I mean, and again, if you're retired and you have unlimited time, and I can, you know, I'm going to take 2 years to do this, then perfect. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, but for me myself, I do the shorter projects and the whole bit just because of the time factor. So, you know, sometimes that affects, you know, what I want to do. I'll you know, it'd be great if I could do this, but I know it's not realistic. So
attention span is big, because I think we all kind of get those buffet line eyes. Oh, the crab legs and the sirloin, and by the time you get done with the Caesar salad, you're full. And again, you know, it's like, oh yeah, no, favorite year, want to do it all, and go, seriously, Pittsburgh, Atlanta again? Really? Yeah. No.
That was a food reference, right? Okay.
Yes.
Just double checking on that. Just okay. Check that off.
We're obliged to have our food references on the show.
What do you want out of your podcast? You want food references? Yes, we're just going to check that off. So anyway, we thought we'd just throw that out there. It just kind of struck me as like, you know, when I was playing, it's like, what do I want out of this game? And what I wanted out of this game is I wanted a full play game, and I wanted to get all the stats, and I wanted to see how some of these teams did playing it out full play. And at the same time, I was learning a game, and it was really fun learning the game. And it just got me thinking, there's different reasons we play different games. And, I play a ton of games, and Ron does. And I know a lot of us out there play different games, and we do it for different reasons. So the question is, what do you want out of your game? And that will sometimes dictate which game, what game, and what teams you play. And so we just thought we'd throw that out there today. Again, I kind of got a newfound love for the longer play football games after doing this one. So now I need to go dig out some of my other ones that I have and play those again now that I have a little bit of time back on my hands. But yeah, I thought it would be fun to just to throw that out there and discuss that today. And again, there's like I say, I have so many favorite games. I got a ton of favorite games, and they all do something different. And what I want when I want something out of a game, that's the game I go to.
And you bring up a good point. Different games for different times, depending on what you're looking for. It doesn't always have to be because it paints the best picture or it gives you the best stats. It's, here's my attention span tonight. Mm-hmm. Here's what I want to do. Saw this, want to do that.
Here's what I'm in the mood for. When you go out to dinner, okay, we've had Chinese 3 times this week. I don't want Chinese again. I want something different, things like that. So sometimes you just mix it up and it keeps it fresh, and that's what I enjoy. I enjoy learning new games. I like the challenge of learning new games, and this has definitely been a challenge, but it's going quite well. I'm enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to the other 2 football games that I'll be coming across my desktop in the next few weeks and learning them. And, adding football back into to what I play and adding football back to the channel. And it'd be interesting to see with all these new games I'm playing, what they do for me. And then when it comes down to what I want out of my game, that'll help me determine which game I'm going to pick. So
absolutely.
Anyway, so let's wrap things up here. So, again, feel free to, in the comments section, let us know what do you want out of your game. All right, so let's go to our 3 stars of the week. Our number 3 star here in episode 217, in no particular order, we have Clay Dresslock.
Yay!
Clay is going to be coming on the show. We got to set up a time with him now that things have settled down in my life. We can open up our Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights again and have people on and talk to them. So we want to get him on. I want to talk to him about season ticket. The last time he was on, we talked about the mogul games, the football mogul and the baseball mogul, but I really do want to get back and talk to him about season ticket because it's a game I really enjoy playing. And I think he was having another sale on it, too. So keep an eye on season ticket websites. He's always having sales on the PDFs.
PDFs we brought down the price, so they're about $1 a team.
Yeah, so go check that out. Number 2 star here in episode 217 is Sal Toscano. Sal, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right, but thank you so much for supporting the show here. And our number 1 star this week, Richard Beach.
Yay!
Richard, thank you so much. I think you just jump into the Discord as well. Again, not everybody jumps on the Discord, and that's fine. You don't have to come in the Discord. It's just kind of optional. We throw it out there. We like to get feedback from people in the Discord, and the people that support the show sometimes will drive the direction of the show and some of the topics that we talk about, and we'll lean heavily on them for some answers for some of our questions. And
when I was a kid, which was not last week, there was a couple stations I listened to. This is a long story, okay? When I was a kid, I was one of those rare kids who enjoyed listening to the full-service AM radio stations in the morning. Dave Maynard was a favorite of mine on BZ and all that. And when I listened to WGY out of Schenectady, New York, 810, still 50,000 watt, clear channel station. And the guy that was the DJ comedy host in the morning was Don Weeks. And his newsman was named Dick Beach, Richard Beach. And just loved, super serious delivery compared to the cornball Don Weeks. And his son's name is Richard Beach as well. I wonder if that's the same. But yep, when I hear the name Dick Beach, yes, it could be an adult Klingon thing, but also he was the Capital District's Gary LaPierre. Because you're going to get that reference. It was Dick Beach. And so that's a name that just brings all sorts of smiles to my face for radio reasons.
I just remember putting on BZ, and there was a couple of the AM radios stations in the 70s, and you put them on to get the cancellation school, because that's how you got it, was over the radio. And my city was a D, and you turn it on, and they'd be like in the Fs, Franklin, and then and then they go into the G's, and you're like, I have to wait till they go through all the stuff, and then for it to come back to the A, B, C, D for me, I would just miss it. And there was a lot of cities, because it'd be like,
you live in Boston, yeah.
Well, it's like, so it's Boston, Boston South, Boston North, Boston Latin Academy, Boston Academy Latin, Boston South Latin Academy. There'd be like 37 Bostons, and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to go through all this. Worcester State Academy, Worcester Academy State, Worcester Boston Academy. It's like, oh my gosh, just go back to the D's, will you?
Oh yeah, I remember listening to BZ and some snowstorms, and then they get to the businesses. Second shift at General Electric Danvers, General Electric Waltham, and General Electric Bill Ricca don't report to work.
Yeah, so it was fun trying to get the cancellations back in the day when they were just listing them off alphabetically. That must have been boring as heck for them too, because once in a while they'd be like, Stone.
I remember finally by the mid '80s, it was at 6:30 because they've been reading them for an hour and a half. This is the last time we will go through this list in full. If it changes, we'll let you know.
Yeah.
But after the 6:30 news, we're doing it one more time, and that's it.
I had a friend's mom I would just call up and say, hi, this is Dave. We got school today? And she'd be like, yeah or no. And I wouldn't even bother, And then the TV stations finally had the list scrolling the bottom at one point, which is, I think, what they do now. But
yeah, that's what they do now.
Fun times back in the day. All right,
okay.
So let's wrap this up.
All right.
So you've been listening to the Digital to Dice podcast, episode 217. And we talked about what do you want out of your game. Ways to get a hold of us. digitaltodice.com is the website. 978-751-DICE is the text line. digitaltodice@yahoo.com is the email. And over on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/digitaltodice. All righty. Well, that was a fun one there. Mm-hmm. Enjoyed talking about some things. Enjoyed talking about some games I've been playing, some new games, and some games coming in. As finally I got some time. Boy, my season's ended so quick. It's just like last weekend, one team was out, one team advanced to the finals, and another team got the wild card but won't have any home games. So in one fell swoop, boom, my broadcast season is done for the hockey season, at least a foreseeable hockey season.
I can't wait for you to pick up some cornhole this summer.
Yeah. I told the guy that I was working for, I says, if you got any camera work, I'll do some camera work. If you don't need a play-by-play guy, I says, I'd be interested in doing some food testing. So if if somebody needs to taste pizza or something like that, just give me a ring. Send me a text. So anyway, all right, I'm Dave.
I'm Ron.
Bye-bye, everyone.
So long.
So long, Cleveland.
Cleveland, Springfield. Bye-bye.